100% need to be there for, and make it a personalized experience. The other thing that I found through the automation specifically to try to make it as personalized as possible is a lot of these softwares, especially for the messaging specifically, you always want to address somebody by their first name. And that helps them think, in even the automation helps them think that this is a personalized thing that like somebody like is reaching out. So I think for the automated stuff, I found you want to personalize messages to somebody's first name to try to make it personal. And then you will, like Tim was saying, have the people that want to get on the phone or text or whatever, to understand that, like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm talking to somebody real.
Interesting. So we talked about software. I guess the next one big thing I always love doing is I feel like the process. Like I try to make everything like almost like crazy simple, like write absolutely every single process out. What is y'all's process, and how do y'all usually like take me through more or less a schedule, like setting up your Airbnb and scheduling your process? You just
Tim, do you
like
want to
write
take that?
down
I'm
every single
interested.
process, or?
Yeah, Tim, I'm interested because of how many people you have in properties. I'm interested to hear this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I hired a director of operations a couple of years ago, and he has some real skills on this, the whole process thing. He used to manage like production plants of, plastics or tires or what, talk about process. You got to do it this way, and this is how you do it. And so we started this thing called Kaizen, which is constant improvement and so on. And we really dove in on some of these processes. And I tell you, I always talk about holding up the mirror. About you talk about how great we are or whatever, but sometimes you hold up the mirror and go, man, we really suck at this. And so one was the whole reservations process. By the time the guest contacts us and whatever we're on the front end until the time they get in the house, we have like 35 points of contact. Like, oh my God, we are wearing these poor people out. And so the only way we got through that, and quite frankly, housekeeping functions and maintenance functions and how we do this and that, there's so much. When you get to a point where you're starting to grow, we call it tribal knowledge. We got to go see Miranda, she knows that. Or you got to go see Sarah, she knows that. But if Sarah got hit by the car, God knows what's going to happen to us because we don't know how to do this. And so we've really been on a journey, I guess I'd say, over the last year and a half to put these things in writing and have actual specific meetings where we get the key players in the room and we talk through, why are we doing this? Well, because we always have done that, and that's not the right answer. And so we've really worked hard on trying to get those processes. We're not where we need to be, but we're a lot better than where we were.
So what are one of the key things that you did that's helped, restructure and make everything a lot easier?
Well, I think back to the one I was mentioning about the reservation sales process. So someone expresses interest and we get the confirmation in the booking and we take payment. And then what happens? We were touching base with them way too many times. They know the balance was due at a certain time. We didn't need to warn them 4 times in advance. We send out a message now when it's due. So we cut that 35 down to about 15. And then once they paid in full, we're reminding them they can do this, that, or the other. Well, we get to be irritating after a while. And no, they're not going to take trip interruption insurance. Just stop trying to sell it. No, they don't want extra towels. No, they don't want a mid-stay clean. No, they don't want, the vacay gear or whatever we're going to try to sell them. So trying to give a little more credibility or credit to the guest and their choices. We're here and we can sell these other things to you, but we're not going to remind you 14 times between now and check-in. So that's one of the things that comes to mind.
Yeah, I've seen that also because I've seen like a lot of people even complaining about Airbnb in general. It's like they see the pricing, but then they click it and they see like all these different charges and they end up paying like 3x to what they originally thought they were going to do. Like it was like clickbait just to get them in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what about you, Travis?
Yeah, Tim's speaking my language because as an industrial engineer, Kaizen, Six Sigma, continuous improvement, the 5 whys, like keep on asking why until you really figure out like what's going on.
Yeah.
All of those are like, I mean, that's what I did in my previous roles and like in Walmart. Like I was the continuous improvement guy of how do we make things more efficient? how do we go in and like be self-reflective of like, why are we doing this process the way that we are? Is it just because it's easier to do it that way? Should this be the new gold standard? Why are we having all these touch points? So I think from a process standpoint, when I go through and if I'm setting up a new listing, I have my document, I call it SOP. I have my standard operating procedure of when I go set up a property, what are the things that I do? How do I make sure that I check off all the Airbnb items when I'm uploading pictures, adding descriptions, making sure there's a cleaning fee? I have all those things documented. And then on top of that, then it's okay. The next step in setting up a listing on that document is now I set up the automation integrations. So I have for my automated messaging, I have these 7 message sequences that need to be set up for this property. In those, I also have the Wi-Fi information. So like I have the online guidebook link that needs to be created for that and dropped into this message. I have the Wi-Fi information that's unique to this property that needs to be dropped in and put for that particular listing. So I essentially just have an SOP that walks through the Airbnb setup, the automation messaging setup, and then the pricing automation setup. So it's essentially just a checklist that I go through for all the properties as I bring them on.
So I know, like, even like when you do long-term rentals, like you want to take a picture of absolutely everything before, because that's going to bring into our next topic issues. Is that something y'all do? You make sure like, hey, I got to take a picture of every square foot of this. And I mean, Tim and some of those houses and I guess complexes almost that's a lot of photos.
Yeah. I can't let it pass here. We're talking about the 5 whys. So we have a refund form when we are going to give back money to either an owner or a guest because we screwed up. At the bottom of the form is the 5 whys. So, I'm looking at one right now on my screen. So that's so good. And one of the other things we have that Travis is explaining in another way, we call it the standard property appearance. And it is a document, and this is the way the welcome bag is supposed to look, and this is the way the towels are rolled. And with that operations app I was telling you about with the housekeeping, and then we don't call them inspectors because we need to be PC. We call them quality control agents. I guess inspections like I'm going to get you. Making sure we got what we're supposed to, and depends on the size of the house. But I mean, I do one of the QC inspections on my own property, and there's 87 things I need to check.
Oh wow!
It's an app, is the refrigerator making ice? Is the dishwasher empty and clean? Are the towels put out properly? Is the thermostat set on cool and 72? All those kinds of things. Take a picture of the grill. Make sure that you don't have hamburger left on there. That's all critical, and it's all about first impression of guests that they make within a couple of minutes of arrival. And if they find cheeseburger on the grill, that means that something else is wrong. I'm going to find that too, and you're going to hear from me, by God,
I got you.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's probably like, I think that Tim, I mean, it's got to be crazy all the SOPs that you guys have because you do own the process end to end. Because like what Tim was just talking about with all that checklist of 80 something items that for a property, that's what I just naturally expect my cleaner to have. Like, I'm not going to provide that information for them, so it makes my job easier. But Tim owning that process end to end, that's a lot of it's a lot of additional work that it takes to create those up front. But then you get a tremendous amount of benefit on the back end.
Sure do. You can surely tell. Hey, in the picture of the TV last week, it was in perfect order, and this week it's off the hinges and on the floor. Something happened while the guest was there, and it was like that all they want. Well, I got a picture right here, so it wasn't. So.
Jeez. So I guess Tim mentioned earlier, he talked about the noise things that can obviously come from the next question would be issues. So I know like even like liability issues. I've seen because I live next to the Outer Banks, I've seen people jump from like the back deck, jump and lift off into the pool. So and I was like, I don't know if Tim manages this, but I was like, man, that's almost a massive liability that he gets hurt. So how do y'all protect yourselves for the big issues